You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Doug Collins Show on the Doug Collins Podcast. Glad to have you here. Another week started. In just a minute, we're going to take a deep dive into Congress, and it's they're back. Be careful, they're back. No, they're back this week for 3 weeks in July, which leads to a 5-week, almost 6-week break in August. Here's the interesting thing about it. We're going to talk about this here in just a minute after the break. What's up on the agenda? You would be amazed at what is still left for Congress to do. Everybody talks about Congress not getting things done. They've left a lot on the table. I want to explain it to you, break it down for you, just so that you know what is coming up and what's not coming up, and what not to expect, and what to expect. I think those are the interesting things. I think one of the things I want to deal with today as we get ready for this episode is what I'll just say is expectations. What is expectations for this fall? I know some of you have zero expectations for Congress, and I get it. I've been there. Been a member of it. So, but I think there's some things that they can do. The question will be, how much will they get done? And frankly, how much has been promised that can't be done? So again, in just a minute, we're going to get into that. Also get into with some Biden. Biden's in Europe. God help us all. He's in London. Maybe he'll figure out that the Queen is dead now because he's meeting with the King. Instead of doing his God Save the Queen routine as we go forward. A lot going on, though, but wanted to start off this week just by giving you a good update on here's what to expect. So we'll be back here in just a minute on the Doug Collins Podcast. I'll start breaking it down. Hey, everybody, you know about Legacy Precious Metals. Legacy Precious Metals, you hear from them. We talk once a month. We talk about Legacy Precious Metals, talking about precious metals being part of your portfolio, how they're your navigator. Well, now they're not only navigating in a new way, they're actually giving you a new way to buy gold and silver. In fact, Legacy Precious Metals has developed a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in real gold and silver online. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped to your door. I'm more of a ship to my door kind of person. I enjoy having them with me, but they can do it either way, and you can now do it online. It gives you real access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time, anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar. This puts you in complete control of your money. This platform is free to sign up for. Just visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and is against a volatile stock market. A true diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but a different asset class. This platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Remember, do as I have done. Go to legacypminvestments.com and get started today. And now you've got a new tool to help you along in your investments. Hey folks, MyPillow is excited to bring to you their biggest bedding sale ever. For a limited time, you're going to get the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98, a set of pillowcases for only $9.98, and rejuvenate your bed with a MyPillow mattress topper for as low as $99.99. $99.99. Get a mattress pillow topper. Look, they come in all sizes. They got all kinds of stuff, blankets. They've got duvets. They got quilts. They got comforters. They got body pillows. They got bolster pillows. They got all that big discounts. And also, they're extending their money-back guarantee for Christmas until March 1, 2023, making them the perfect gift for your friends, your family, and for everyone you know. Folks, and just from a personal note here, I have the Giza Dream Sheets. They're on my bed right now. I slept on them last night. Some of the best sheets that we and Lisa and I have ever owned. They are worth, at this price, they're a steal. My wife and I have bought bed sheets, linens at much higher cost. It's supposedly much higher quality. These from MyPillow are at the highest of quality, and at a price like this, you can't beat it. So go now to MyPillow.com, use promo code Collins, COLLINS, or call 1-800-986-3994, and you'll get huge discounts on all the MyPillow bedding products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98, and get all your shopping done while qualities last. And remember, put in that promo code Collins for these discounts. All right. we're breaking it down here on the Doug Collins podcast. Let's start off with Biden in Europe. I mean, this is scary. I mean, this is the same, folks. I know, frankly, if you're a liberal, listen to this, you're a Republican, Democrat, whatever, there's just got to be a problem at some point here that we've got to address. And that Biden has always had the slip of the tongues. He's always had the, remember, it was President Obama himself that said, never underestimate the ability for Joe Biden to F things up. Okay. That's his own word. That's his own president to vice president words. Okay. And just this past week in a conversation, it was let out that the U.S. was looking to send cluster bombs to Ukraine. I mean, this was on live mic, caught, and this is a concern. If he's throwing out stuff and doesn't have, frankly, the wherewithal to not talk about things like that on the air, which, by the way, most countries in the world, except us, have banned the use of cluster bombs, it's just highlighted even more so that this is really concerning. Now, again, does Joe Biden, I've had conversations with folks, I've had others have had conversations about him behind the scenes, seemingly, getting stuff done. Okay, great. But there's too many slip ups and other things happening in the public appearances that cause people to really wonder. So he's in England right now. We'll be going over to the NATO summit and then on and then back. NATO summit is going to be really big because this is going to be dealing with Ukraine coming into NATO. The all expectations is, again, expectations may not meet reality, but expectations is that Germany and U.S. will continue to slow walk it or maybe not outright oppose, but slow walk NATO membership for the Ukraine. Real quickly here, and this is something that we've talked about on the podcast before last year when the Ukraine-Russia war broke out, when Russia invaded Ukraine, is there's an understanding that Ukraine was the off-limit zone for Russia. In other words, and if you go back to historical purposes here, Ukraine has such a large historical role in that region, in Russia, in the old Soviet Union. So many leaders, they're just so much intertwined between Ukraine and what we know as modern day Russia, the Federation now. And again, it makes it very difficult. But Russia has always talked about the fact of NATO expansion and Ukraine being one of many, but being one that they say, look, NATO this is off limits. They're too close. We don't want this here. Again, and for those of you out there who get, very upset with, okay, well, Russia can decide whatever they want to do. We're going to decide what we want to do. Fine. I just have to remind you that just this past couple of weeks, China has said that they're wanting to start a base, a joint base operations with Cuba. Does that country ring a bell to anybody? 90 miles off the Florida Keys, right across the channel there, 90 miles. And of course, what was the natural reaction from the United States? Very much concern. Whatever we can do to stop it. We don't want China in Cuba. I'm not justifying war by any means. Putin ought to be gone. I mean, Russia is a totalitarian state that is just a problem on the world stage. But also there is this issue here at this point. Everybody's gotten themselves so dug in here. The question is, how can we avoid further escalation and getting this thing solved? Russia getting out of Ukraine and Ukraine given some sort of semblance of protection, while at the same point Russia has its own safety concerns, if you would, about Western involvement in something that borders their country. I mean, these are the issues that have plagued this for the last year and a half. And now you're in the middle of a Ukraine counteroffensive that does not seem to be going as well as they thought it was going to be going. And now NATO is meeting. So again, I just put this out there, folks, to say, look, Joe Biden's going to be there. We'll see what happens coming this way. But look, it's not just as simple as people are making this out to be. Now, I'm going to take it a step further. You go and get into spending bills, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, in Congress, and you've got a real problem with Ukraine spending and the amount of money we're sending to the Ukraine. That is it actually doing what it was supposed to be doing? Is it spent the way it's supposed to be spent? It's interesting to me that some of the folks who have been the most vocal at Ukraine spending have also been very silent or very less vocal on actual accountability of where that spending is going. I think you're going to see a lot of discussion about that here coming weeks. So just to know, this week, today on Monday, you got Biden meeting with the Prime Minister in Britain. You got the meeting with King Charles. You got the meetings then starting up in NATO. So that's why you need to be aware of it. But Biden himself is becoming more and more of an issue. There was an article just out that came out over the weekend and is starting to get some traction on the behind the scenes Biden, as they portray him as this sort of old, lovable uncle that, just is a little bit different as he gets older. He also, the Axios actually put out an article in which shows him to be basically a bully. And they're saying that it's a quote, speaking Biden. They go back into this time where Biden will taunt or play stump the dummy, so to speak, is what I think the words they use, on people who come in and brief him, and he'll find things in reports just to get to the point where they don't know what they're talking about, and then use yell at them saying they don't know what they're talking about, using expletives in that, profanity. Again, I'm not sure what leadership life you came from, but that just is not good leadership. Asking questions, helping people find answers, good leadership. But also, it's interesting to me that they said this has gone on for a long time, that he's this sort of a bully behind the scenes. And as he was younger, you could probably see this a little bit more on the Senate floor. But now, it's questioning to me is why is this public perception of him sort of bumbling around, misstating, saying things that people don't understand, getting his words mangled, and then yet now a story coming out in the background that in the White House that people try to avoid him because he lashes out. Well, folks, those kind of conditions are not absent from many who get older, but it is also a concern of, is he still, functioning in a leadership role that we have seen? And I think that's just going to be a concern as this election season comes about. Again, he's functioning, he's doing everything right. I mean, that's what the Biden administration will portray. That's what they'll continue to do in this election cycle. But these kind of stories, I'm just not sure, if this came from the Biden camp or not come from the Biden camp. And they made it really look like that, this was learning Biden, that you had to learn how to speak Biden. If they think that's a good thing, there's going to be a lot of people look at that and say, I'm not so sure. I think that may be, there may be some other issues going on here. So this is, just the perception problem that Joe Biden has with he can't get things straight. He's bumbling. He's having trouble walking. He gets lost on stage, which, again, was on display even this weekend, really forces people to wonder, what are we looking at if we go into this election cycle? And for many of us conservatives, God forbid that he wins 4 more years. I mean, this is just a problem, especially when you have Kamala Harris, the vice president, who last week, and we're going to put this clip in here right here, because you got to hear this from Kamala Harris last week at the Essence Conference. I can't make this up, folks. What do you make of that? I mean, you ask a simple question, and this is what we get. Time, culture, all this. And then just in the middle of it, just sort of laughs. It comes in the morning. Well, okay, I'm sure you're talking about joy, and that's a biblical attribution. I get it, but you're forcing everything. This is the best the Democrats have to offer, folks. We've got a full field of Republican candidates. Donald Trump is running away with it right now. DeSantis is doing his best, spending all the money he can to try and fix it. You got other candidates doing the same thing. But I will take any of them over Biden Harris, believe me, as we go forward. That brings us to another, as we do the topics of the day, and that is, why is it so hard? How many Secret Service agents does it take to find the cocaine in the White House? I mean, I know this sounds like the start of a bad joke, but over the past week, and it's been going on for a week now, cocaine was found in the White House. Let's first off talk about the fact that, first off, it was said that they didn't know what it was. Hazmat was called. They got it. Field testing said it was cocaine. Then the White House tried to tap that down, saying, well, it's not there yet. And then they finally got their test results back. It was cocaine. Then it started off, well, it was in the West Wing, then it was in a visitor's area, then it was in the library, then it was in a cubby, and now they're actually saying it was in a cubby somewhere close to the Situation Room, which is, if you look at any map, a publicly available map, you see where the Situation Room is in comparison to the doorways and the parking lots between the OEB, the old executive building, and the White House, West Wing. So again, we see where this is at. I will just say from personal experience, all people coming in and out of the White House, even if they don't have to sign in and out, people know who's coming in and out. The Secret Service know who their people are. The White House, West Wing people are all cards that they get in and out of. So it's then past the family of Joe Biden and the vice president. Everybody knows who's in that building. Number two, everybody is going through cameras and facial recognition. There's all this, security there. From where this is supposedly at, you got security sitting very close by there. My question is, and this has become the one that has just buffaloed many, and we sort of mentioned it on the podcast, but I have to delve into it because I never thought this was going to go a week. Now, there's a lot of folks who have said, "Oh, of course, it's Hunter Biden's." I'm not saying that. It could be, it could not be. It could be anybody's. Okay. But the simple fact that they're going to DNA testing, fingerprint testing on baggie of cocaine is just amazing to me when you have all of these other security outlets and security cameras and everything there. The question really comes, is this, and this was said on an interview that I was on the other day, that the Secret Service folks who've dealt with this say this was solved a long time ago. They know who it is. And if they don't know who it is, then it really begs the question, how much security do we have at the White House and how much more do we actually need? If they can God forbid, if it was this easy to drop cocaine in a cubby or somewhere close to the Situation Room, if wherever they got it pegged is now, which by the way, they also know exactly where it was pegged. The hazmat units were called, for God's sakes. Why we kept getting different opinions on where it was at is beyond me. Are you kidding me? They were called to investigate it. The first rule of investigation is know where you're going and write it down. But now we're here. We're almost a week into this thing, right at a week, and we still are kind of unsure where it was first located. We still are not told whose it is. We're still not sure. And Secret Service last week gave this comment that, well, we may never know. For me and for you folks, this is a problem. This should be an interesting issue for anybody. I don't care what party you're in. I don't care who's the president and what party they may stem from. If the Secret Service and the security details that are around that building cannot tell us that kind of information, then we've got a problem. Or narrow it down to at least 3 or 4 people. Okay, fine. If at first blush you can't tell exactly who dropped it, but can you tell at least down to 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 who came by there? Who, if it was in a cubby, actually opened the cubby? And again, folks, we have trouble with people believing anything that comes out of the government right now. Cocaine in the White House. I never thought I'd have to say that. And then we had mainstream media sort of covering it up, saying, well, nobody may know. And remember, Willie Nelson got high on top of the White House. And folks, we're downplaying an event here. And look, I get it. That sometimes, the drugs are there. Am I so crazy to believe that there may not be some in somebody's pocketbook or purse or briefcase in there right now? No, probably not. But the way it was left out in a substance that nobody knew what it was, and in fact, to the point to where they had to call a hazmat, they were concerned that it could have been an anthrax or some kind of other powder, that is a concern. And if you don't think it is, then you're too partisan to see past the nose on your face. I can't help you. Republicans, Democrats, both should say, this shouldn't take this long. And if Congress needs to do something to help beef up the security at the White House, then they need to get on it this week when they're back. But no, this has become political. Everybody's just brushing it off. Nobody's talking about it in the news cycle. Mainstream media has already quit talking about it. Let me just say, for instance, I do not believe that the mainstream media would still not be talking about this if Donald Trump was in the White House, or any other Republican for that matter. It would still be on the top of the network. So this is the Biden White House, folks. This is what we're seeing. This is the problem that we have, at this point. And, as we go forward in this, it's just concerning. I mean, when you look at, what is going on and how it's happening and the answers that we don't get from this administration. I mean, it's one thing to not get answers from the administration about, policy questions or others, but when you have no answers on Hunter Biden, you have no answers on the cocaine, you have no answers, and then actually try to use the Hatch Act to get out of a question on Hunter Biden and the cocaine, it's like, Again, this is a problem. So moving on from the Biden administration, let's go to this week. This week in Congress, they're back this week, and they've got a lot left to do. I told you in the preview that we have a lot of things left to do. There's only 12 legislative days until the August recess starts. Now, 12 legislative days basically equips to 4 days for the next 3 weeks is the way you want to look at it. And if you really want to get technical about it, you have you'll have tomorrow and this evening when the Senate comes in. They come in the evening. The House, for instance, will come in tomorrow evening, vote on their first bill, suspension bills. These are typically unanimous bills that everybody votes for. And they're flying out again on Friday. So the truth of the matter is, unless they held out for the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, which we'll talk about here in a minute, the House will be in for 2 full days and then out again on Friday, back in probably on Monday, for 2 full days, Tuesday, Wednesday, out on Thursday, and then sort of a similar setup for the end of the week. These are issues that, again, normal happenings in Congress. Nothing is new here. What is pressing now is the fact that after they made the deal for the debt ceiling, they have now left themselves to pass all 12 appropriations bills this year. It is interesting that they did not use September 30th it looks like, as the deadline for that. They used January 1 as the deadline for this, which, again, for folks out there keeping score at home, the federal budget runs out on September 30th, not January 1st. And if appropriations bills are not passed by then, you either have one of 2 options. You shut down the government, number one. Number 2, you pass a CR, a continuing resolution, which keeps all the basic spending platforms that you currently have in place until you pass something else. Or some ways you get a bill that is what we call the omnibus, where you have part of it is spending bills or cromnibus, where you have a CR and an omnibus. I mean, so again, this idea of passing all 12 looks to be already not existent. And you got 12 legislative days to do it for fiscal year 2024. Some of the things that's just frankly not done yet, National Defense Authorization Act, which the House is going to take up this week. And if you're one of those wonky ones who want to sit up late and watch the floor of the House on C-SPAN, get ready. You're going to have long days on the House floor. They had over 1,400 amendments filed on this bill, many of which are not germane. If you're not sure what germane means, it means that if an amendment is authored, it has to be related to the underlying bill. If it is not related to the underlying bill, it is declared non-germane and should not be voted on. This is where it gets interesting. The Republicans in the House are the purveyors of germaneness right now. The Rules Committee is going through this process, and it is my understanding that many both sides of the aisle have submitted non-germane amendments. We'll see how this works out. The House Freedom Caucus has submitted several that are not germane, but have said that they've got to be taken a vote on, or they may hold out votes for the bill. Remember, Republicans only have a margin of 5 to play with. And we saw what happens when 1 or 2 groups sits back and says, we're not voting for something. So this is going to go interesting. 1,400 amendments will not be voted on, but the question is how many will. Some will come in block. In other words, they'll put 20 or 30 amendments together, and you vote one vote on that amendment block, and that's how they get rid of a lot of them at times. Simply, they'll put together amendments that nobody has any objections to. They'll put 20, 30, or 40 of those together. They'll do 10 minutes, 20 minutes to talk about the amendments. Anybody can come up and talk about them, their amendment. And then you have a big vote on the package. That doesn't mean that they're going to finally end up in the bill when the Senate gets it, but it is something to look at. What does this bill have? It's $886 billion package. It's about half of the discretionary spending of the budget, little give or take, however you want to cut it. So over half the discretionary spending, what Congress can actually go back and forth on, is tied up in this defense bill. It includes a 5.2% pay hike for service members, hundreds of millions of dollars for quality of life improvement. That will be base housing, other things like that. It also has $300 million in new funding for Ukraine, which will be interesting to see how that gets through the House, especially with some of the Republicans who said we don't need to continue spending in Ukraine. I'm really curious as to how that $300 million is going to be perceived by some of the conservatives and others in the House as far as spending in Ukraine. It does put more money into the Pacific strategy to confront China, so we'll see how that goes. Senate's got a bigger issue on this, and that's coming from Tommy Tuberville, who's holding up senior military level promotions on the abortion issue. It's going to be interesting to see how this actually goes. Other things that are still left to be done, but not doing as much of. Senate is actually taking up, the Appropriations Committee is taking up markups on the legislative branch, Commerce, Justice, and Science, CJS is what it's called, Financial Services, and general government spending bills. That's 4 of the 12 spending bills. And they're going to actually mark these up at the 2023, the levels that was approved about 5 weeks ago in the debt ceiling limit. Reminder, the House is going to mark their bills up as they go through it at 2022 levels. So you're already headed for a roadblock in these bills being spent because, one, the Senate's going to do it at the higher amount, the House is going to do it at the lower amount, and many in the House have said, if we're not at this level, I won't vote for the final bill. Well, I pretty much guarantee you going into this that most, if not all, the numbers are going to be higher than what the House passes, mainly because you have a president that can veto it and you have a Senate that's Democrat. Now, some of them may be closer, but this is going to present the issue that I spoke of just a few minutes ago, and that being the fact that September 30th being this deadline for shutdown of the government, a continuing resolution. I think right now I would say it's going to be more continuing resolution, and they'll probably get it done fairly quickly. And then the rest of the fall will be, and into early winter, will be consumed with how do we pass these bills. This is going to be the real test for McCarthy and leadership on getting this out of the House. The Senate's pretty much lockstep on this. They'll pass their appropriation bills. The question is, will they pass all 12 individually? That's going to be an interesting thing coming up to see. Then you got stuff like the Farm Bill. We're going to talk about the Farm Bill. I want to do a whole podcast on the Farm Bill. Most people view the Farm Bill, and it used to be one of the most bipartisan bills on the Hill. Now it has become a real problem because 80% of the Farm Bill has nothing to do with farm policy. It has everything to do with food stamps, subsidies, and welfare, which was bound together in the Farm Bill back in the 60s. Over the past 15 years, this has become it's a bill that's done for every 4 years. It's become a real problem getting passed. And it's sort of stuck in nowhere land right now. It looks like they're going to try and do an extension on it to get it passed. You've also got federal authorization on FAA. This is the Aviation Authority, with everything we got going on in the flying right now, getting back to record levels, pre-pandemic levels. The FAA, air traffic controllers, everybody else, this is an issue that needs to be passed. We'll see how this comes. It's typically, most of it has been bipartisan on this, but again, something that needs to be passed. You've also got things that, Pfizer reauthorization. Again, we're going to, when that finally does start surfacing, I'm going to get you up to date on Pfizer. I had to deal a lot with Pfizer when I was in the Congress. You're going to have to, this is the thing that goes back all the way to, the FISA leaks. This goes back to Eric Snowden. This goes, again, so a lot of things going on there. But these are all things that have not been done. And they're big pieces of legislation that have got to be done that we're being taken up with a lot of other things. Now, one thing we will have this week is hearings. And you're going to see these in the House Judiciary Committee. Is going to have Chris Wray on Wednesday of this week. This is going to be from the Republican perspective, be a real hostile hearing with Chris Wray. Nobody is happy with Chris Wray on the Republican side. Democrats will come to the defense. We'll see how this all plays out. In the end, the question is, will it be any emphasis on the CJS budget, which we talked about the Senate taking up when it gets to the House? Will there be any move to defund or to hold back money from the Department of Justice, the FBI, or anywhere else in between? Merrick Garland, by the way, coming in September, will be another huge sort of high-profile hearing that has a chance for members to air their grievances. One that's not going to get a lot of much play in the media is Lena Khan from the FTC, Federal Trade Commission's, the next day, actually Thursday, in Judiciary. Again, that's going to be a big one as well, dealing with tech, dealing with mergers, dealing with a lot that's going on in the Biden administration about this. You'll, again, won't get the headlines that Chris Wray will, but will be an interesting set of hearings for you to look at. Patrick McHenry, chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, was also going to be doing hearings this week on environmental, social, and government standards, either the ESG standards that House folks have been talking about in regard to financial regulations, and it'll be interesting to see what becomes of that as we go forward here. A lot, again, banking still a big issue. These are the kind of things that you have. Also, there's still a lot of talk, and I'm going to go back and mention this. There's a lot of talk about the Live Golf and PGA having a hearing in Homeland Security in the Senate. I've said this before on TV. I'm going to say it again here. I don't understand this hearing except for it's the comms director's dream to get 5 minutes on YouTube to have your boss condemn the Khashoggi and human rights violation of Saudi Arabia. But the Congress itself getting involved in Live, getting involved in PGA is just another waste of time that they could be working on some of these other issues. That's just, even when I was in Washington, there was some hearings that I said, frankly, we don't need to be doing these. They're out of our realm, but we've seen it before. We've seen it with steroids in baseball. We've seen it in professional sports. We've seen it with, concussions. We've seen it with everything. If Congress could, carve out just a little bit of that time. Remember, I've already talked to you about how short their week is anyway, and that doesn't mean that they don't work. And I'm going to be very protective here for a minute. Members of Congress are pretty much on 7 days a week. They have to go to meetings. They go through everywhere, and they have to have a lot of things going on, ranging from, running for office to being in office. But there's a lot of time that is left on the table in Washington, D.C. that does not get used. And I think for Kevin McCarthy, for Chuck Schumer in the Senate, and for others, they're going to have to start figuring out ways to have more committee time, more floor time, so that they can move some of this product out. Because right now the Congress has become we moved a lot of big bills and then some stuff that nobody ever heard of, but nothing in that you see of big policy changing items, mainly because of the partisanship, but also mainly because there's just not enough time to do the deep dive, to find the consensus and the cooperation to do it. And that's where you're finding in the National Defense Authorization Act, which should come together, but you're finding it a problem in the Farm Bill. You're finding it in the FISA Act, which will be coming up later. You've got the Federal Aviation Authorization Act. You got other these that are coming up. It's just a lot of things to do in a short amount of time. And, look, we're just getting started. I wanted to give you an update here as we start the 3-week push in July, which will lead to a 6-week gap from the 1st of August to the 1st to right after Labor Day in Congress. Then they're going to come back and they'll have less than 3 weeks to decide what they're going to do on all of these spending measures. But that's the look at it from perspective, from Biden to Congress to everywhere else. This is your update for Monday here on the Doug Collins Podcast. Go out and have a great one. Talk to you later.